We're live briefly. Fran Stosh checking in. There's going to be some big shows this week. Going to be going into the code breaking of World War II from the Polish perspective, as I am Stosh. We're going to be talking about what's it like where you are, how are you dealing with the EMF, how are you dealing with the GMO foods, how are you dealing with the geoengineering. Are we even allowed to talk about this stuff in a civil manner? Are we allowed to talk about anything? We've got 3 listeners. How's everybody doing? It's going to be a big week on the Stosh Prada channel. Going deep. Some well-prepared shows. Going to do a book review of Dr. John Dee, the Enochian Master, Dr. John Dee 007, by Jason Laveau. It's a mammoth tome. We'll almost need 2 sessions to do a proper book review of that book. Excellent. Just doing a check, seeing if this system works. Hope everybody's doing well. What's the weather like where you're coming from? And give me a shout. I will probably be on late tonight. Just testing another new gear. Anyway, peace out. That's correct. The Poles did it first. Marian Wojcicki. I am going to go into that. Thank you, Dr. Igor. You're absolutely right. And as you might expect, the Imitation Game movie doesn't properly go into the subject. And it's pretty interesting. I'm going to go into it. They were definitely received no credit for that effort, as well as the magnificent Kosciuszko 303 Squadron. Polish-American Gabby Gobretsky is kind of recognized by people who are really into fighter pilot stuff. He had the most kills in the European theater. 303 Kosciuszko Squadron was the best squadron of World War II, but they are unrecognized. And all kind of guys come and say, well, there was a guy from here and a guy from there. Yeah, I think there was a guy from the Czech Republic in a similar unit, but the kill ratio goes to the Kosciuszko Squadron, and the most difficult or the worst air battle might have been around Kursk in terms of numbers, but the most sophisticated and wildest air war ever in the history of mankind, as far as I know, was the Battle for Britain. And Sir Laurence Olivier just gives them one little line in that movie, and of course they sort of make a fool out of him. Really. Yeah, in the Battle of Britain. Maybe some guys who do the video games know now. They finally did do a movie about it that gave him some credit. Mel Gibson's son, Milo or something, plays the Canadian guy that worked on Attachment with them. And also Colonel Matt Urban is probably, you can definitely make an argument that more than likely he's the most decorated soldier in the history of the U.S. military. The most decorated often goes to Audie Murphy, who was an actor from Texas. But he's really not. He was also much a lower rank. And anyway, my point that I always bring up when I bring up Colonel Matt Urban is nobody knows him. So even if he was the second most, which he isn't, I believe he's actually the first when you look into it. There was a Medal of Honor that he was awarded too late. And finally, President Jimmy Carter got it to him. Air Force brat. Oh, yeah. Very good. Some of the Air Force bases are really... I've been on the one, Ramstein, and Aviano is incredible. Aviano Air Base in Italia. So I'll be going into that stuff. Brian. I mean, I've heard from his family on here. I mean, incredible. Uh, they were talking about doing Vito Pilecki, the guy who volunteered to go into Auschwitz from Poland, was a great hero of World War II, and they were talking about doing a movie on him, and it just hasn't come to fruition as well. No Greater Ally is a book by the contribution of the Poles, who were the largest army in exile, but one of the main things that's also quite omitted is the considerable contribution to code breaking, which I'm going to go in soon. Thank you. Nice. The Cold War era. I miss the Cold War, Dr. Igor. So, yeah, just a brief check. So you can hear me pretty good with this new setup, I hope. Very good. Very good. I know now people do this vlogging or YouTube stuff, and their stuff is amazing. I just gab old school on them, which is good for the sleep. Which is good for the sleep. Definitely the Blackbird plane from the Cold War era is incredible aircraft. Suspiciously, the U-2 plane went down on May 1st, keeping the Cold War going. The one that was it Gary Powers got captured on. Very odd. Yes. Air Force brat. Exciting. Yes. Well, that's what I'm going to be talking about, Dr. Igor. So be prepared. Hopefully, I add something new that you may have not known about the codes. And I'm going to do a singular thing on Colonel Matt Irvine as well, which I've done on here. I've approached the United States Post Office a couple of times about getting him stamped, and no luck. So I don't really have a good attitude about that. I think there's stamps of Pluto and Minnie and Mickey Mouse and stuff, but there's nothing for that war hero. And there's no real significant books about him. So I've never taken it very well. I don't have a good attitude about it at all. At all. I'm not a good sport when it comes to uh, basically keeping a total suppression of not just the Polish from Poland, but also the Polish American contribution to this country within regard to that war. Definitely, the Audie Murphy is a great man, and he should be up there. He was a really handsome guy, but he was an actor in a propaganda piece in that regard, and he wasn't a colonel like Urban and all the other stuff. He wasn't a boxer. That was wild. That was really interesting. I'm going to get into that. I'm going to do Dr. Igor. I don't know if you've seen some of my things. I have some rare stuff with espionage and all that. I have a whole thing about General Earl Koch. I'm the only person who brought up the fact of the matter that Ronald Rewald, a guy in Hawaii, kind of a Magnum PI setup over there, might be innocent. I'll go into him. I'm the only one who's brought up the Guggenheim Bank, other than a cool writer who I kind of pissed him off, but he did a book about how it was John Nugent and Mike Hand, and Mike Hand was caught about 5 years ago now already, or 3 years ago, or something, a while ago already. Yeah, maybe 4 or 5 years ago already. Time's going by. And I have some long ones about how the Cold War weirdly ended or whatever. There were some brief mentions that Oswald had some connection to the Powers shootdown that was really weird too, and that he stayed at a psychiatric hospital in Japan that Colonel Oliver North also did a bit at. I hate that you can't really discuss this stuff anymore. I don't know. Further and further, because there's a lot of crackpots that discuss espionage or whatever, and it doesn't go well. But, people call me conspiracy theorist, but there's nothing on this channel that's not in major published works. So, I even kind of dig that whole Fox Mulder rap, whatever that you're looking into, but it's not. There's not a single thing on here that I haven't. I did some things that were, no way. Or Mr. John Masters, I guess, house, right? Higgins's. I did not know that. Well, he knows where to go, and he's got the best house in Martha's Vineyard too, right? Woo. Maybe it's Sheriff Brody's house in Martha's Vineyard he's got. Magnum PI was freaking cool. I love Rick and TC. All right, Dr. Iger, just a brief check-in. So I'll be seeing you this week. Maybe you can catch me. I'll try to give you a shout out. I'm going to do a long thing in this code breaking thing because I don't see much on it. I'm going to be referencing a certain amount from this guy who's got a cool blog called Polish Greatness. Guy who's pretty proud. So I didn't know it was that extensive. And, of course, somebody like me, I'm going to watch the movie The Imitation Game, where it just gives not even really barely any mention at all. And another movie called Enigma, which portrays the Polish cryptologist as stealing the codes and giving it to the Nazis or something, which is complete bullshit. Hollywood is not portrayed World War II very well for the Poles. I mean, what can I say? That does not mean that Benedict Cumberbatch is not an awesome actor. And Keira Knightley is just a winner. She's an Imitation Game as well. But the Poles are not. And a lot of people in the know say that it would have took a lot longer for Turing and Bletchley Park to beat that machine. And I'm going to go into that. Marian Majewski and two other guys did a lot, outnumbered, with not that many zlotys, not that much money. We're going to go into that this week, Dr. Igor, as well as other Cold War culture. Good to hear you, Doctor. I will be on soon. I'm glad you jumped in with me on such short notice. And I'm going to do the best to have a good, interesting show on that code breaker stuff. So stay tuned this week, guys. Hope you're all doing good. Ciao.